America, there's a game they make you play in sales training. It's called Two Truths and a Lie. You go around a conference room, everyone gives 3 statements about themselves, and the group finds the fake one. It's an icebreaker. It exists so that 11 strangers in lanyards can feel like a team before the box lunches show up. And the whole point of it is the lie. That's the entire game. Find the fake one. There's no skill in it. There's a right answer, and everyone gets there before the coffee's cold. But America's playing a new version. 2 truths, and you pick one anyway. There's no lie pile. Doesn't matter. You have to pick. And folks, where it really hit me this week was this Lindsay Clancy trial. I'm not going to tell you what I think about the trial. Everyone else is doing that. And for 2 main reasons. One, it's really complicated. Both sides hired forensic psychiatrists, both credentialed, both sat in that courtroom under oath and told 12 people opposite things about the same woman on the same night. I mean, News Nation reported the doctor the defense put up is Philip Resnick, also testified for Andrea Yates. That's the league we're in. Okay, it's big time. 2, I don't know Massachusetts law, which is its own animal. So it's not my call, it's theirs. 12 people in Plymouth County, Massachusetts. And I have enormous sympathy for that 12. That's the hardest job anybody in this country has been handed since the OJ jury, and I'd argue theirs is worse. That jury got to fight about evidence, a glove, a car, a slow chase the whole country watched on television, things you can hold in your hand and pass down the table in the deliberation room. These 12 have to decide what was happening inside somebody's head on one night 3 years ago. And there's no video of that. There's no real hard proof. And what worries me is those 12 are being asked to hold 2 things at the same time. She did it. And was she responsible? That's the exact thing this country has stopped being able to do. I don't know if 12 Americans can still do it. They probably will deadlock, but I'm not sure I could. I'm Chad Law, the last gay conservative, and America, this is common sense. If you've got a question, an argument, or think I've got this dead wrong, text 252-CHAD-LAW. I'll answer you in the after hours right after the broadcast. All right, let's take this thing apart. Real quick, one thing, I'm going to say it one time, and it covers everything we're going to talk about in this show up front. I don't have skin in any of these fights, okay? I'm not on Lindsay Clancy's jury, and I'm not guessing at a verdict 12 people are still working on. Carmelo Anthony's case is different because it's finished. He was convicted, sent to 35 years. Last Saturday, a judge went back through the whole thing and let it stand, and it's going up to the 5th Court of Appeals because everybody in this country gets appeal. That's not a scandal. It's just the machine running quietly in the background. And like always, I'm not auditing anyone's heart. I can't see in there. Neither can you. Neither can the guy with the ring light and 400,000 followers, though he's going to try in under 60 seconds with sad piano music under it. That's not what this is. What I can do is look at what people said and what everyone else did about it. So today's question is the simplest one in America. A kindergartner could ask it with 4 words. Wait, can't both be true? Watch what happens every time somebody does. Lindsay Clancy's own lawyers are not arguing she didn't do it. I want to make sure that landed. CBS News laid the trial out on August 17th. Her attorneys don't dispute that she killed Cora Dawson and Callan. That's not the fight. That was never the fight. The fight is whether she's criminally responsible for it. That's the whole strategy. 2 things. She did it. She was sick. Her lawyers are holding both in a courtroom under the rules professionally for money. But go walk outside. Newsweek's been covering the crowd. Pink shirts, signs, hashtags. Justice for Lindsay. I stand with Lindsay. I am Lindsay. And a big piece of that support is out there arguing she didn't do it. I had to read that one 3 times. Her own defense concedes it, but her supporters won't. I mean, that would be like hiring a lawyer, watching him tell the judge you did it, and then having your mother out on the courthouse steps hollering that the lawyer's in on it. Wait, can't both be true? Truth 1. This woman killed 3 children. Nobody disputes it. Not the state, not her lawyers, not her. Truth 2. Something was catastrophically wrong with her. She'd been to a psychiatrist. She'd been to an emergency room. Her attorney told that jury that she was so wrecked from the lack of sleep she couldn't laugh and couldn't even cry. That's not a compromise. That is just the file. Black and white in front of us. And before somebody texts me that I'm accusing her, read it again. I put the dead children first. Both sentences are in there. That's the entire point. The people who can't handle a sentence with a "and" in it are the ones I'm talking about, and some of them are already typing to me. Because look at what the two camps did with it. The prosecution's fans took Truth 1 and threw Truth 2 in the garbage. Her supporters took Truth 2 and threw Truth 1 in the garbage. And the woman's own attorney was standing right there holding it. Nobody split the difference. Everybody in this country split the file. And they've got a suspect, by the way. Of course they've got a suspect. It's the husband. It's Patrick, the man who came home to that house and made the 911 call. The Spectator ran through some of this last week. One person posted that they'd had a dream that Patrick hurt the little girl and captioned it with a hope that Lindsay gets justice. A dream! In Massachusetts, they've got rules of evidence. On TikTok, they've got REM sleep and supplements. Same piece. Somebody looked at a trial that hasn't ended, that has no verdict, and declared her the winner. The reasoning being that she proved postpartum psychosis the moment she killed her 3 children. But sit in that. The crime is now the evidence for the defense, which means the worse it is, the more it proves. I mean, that's a snake eating itself, and it's got a comment section. Can't both be true? Postpartum psychosis is real. It's rare, it's terrifying, and it belongs in that courtroom. And the fact that a woman killed her children isn't proof that she had it. That's the question. You can't use the answer as evidence. Now, day 16, Newsweek reported that the defense tried to call a TikTok creator as a witness. Judge William Sullivan had her questioned outside the jury's presence and ruled she would not be testifying. So an influencer got within one ruling of the witness stand in a triple homicide. Your Honor, the defense calls, and then a handle with an underscore in it. That's the guardrail, by the way. One judge, one ruling. That's the whole thing standing between us and somebody swearing an oath about a family they found on their For You page. And Scripps News talked to the people who do this for a living. Annie Elise hosts a true crime podcast, and she said she can't believe some of the theories going up. Reckless ones, dangerous ones. Right. Because those are the ones that move. The responsible video about a real medical condition does 900 views. The one where a stranger solves the case in her sleep does 2 million. Meanwhile, down in the comments, people are typing that they're grabbing the popcorn. Popcorn. 3 kids. And you're grabbing the popcorn. You're allowed to be interested in this. Human beings have always rubbernecked. That's not a moral failing. That's our species. And it's a funeral. 3 of them. Holding both doesn't require you to stop watching. It requires you not to type the word popcorn. Now, if you think this is one team's disease, one kind of person, one app, hang on. Rolling Stone ran a piece yesterday. The Federalist Sean Davis looked at women pushing back on his take and called them psychopaths who need to be institutionalized. Not the ones defending her, the ones who disagreed with him about her. And Jack Posobiec said that there are going to be Lindsay Clancy copycats because of the TikTok algorithm and radical feminist groups. Copycats of a woman who's paralyzed from the waist down because she flung herself out of a second-story window. That's not a warning. That's a marketing campaign. So on one side of the internet, she didn't do it. On the other side, she's a franchise. And back in Plymouth County, there are 2 doctors who both read the actual file, both took an oath, both looked at the same woman, and they can't agree with each other. Those 2 are the only people in this entire story being careful, and they're the ones who disagree. Postpartum mental illness gets dismissed, minimalized, and joked about, and women have a real complaint about that. I'm not arguing that. And 3 children are dead, and somebody has to answer for it. Both. And that same Rolling Stone piece noted that Matt Walsh's own wife had posted publicly about how hard postpartum is, praying for another mother, offering to listen. Same argument, same house. So it isn't that Americans can't understand nuance. We understand it fine at the kitchen table, We just won't do it with the door wide open. Now I want to tell you about one man. Patrick Clancy came home to that house. He's the one who found them. He's the one who called 911. And on January 28th of 2023, 4 days later, he put out a statement. NBC ran it, CBS ran it. He asked people to forgive her, not to understand her, not to have a nuanced national conversation about maternal mental health. Forgive her. And later to the New Yorker, he said this, I'm quoting, "I wasn't married to a monster. I was married to someone who got sick." That's the sentence. That's the entire argument of this episode in 12 words from the man with more reason than anyone alive to refuse to say it. He held both. He lost all 3 of his children, and he held both. And a piece of the internet answered him by deciding that he was the killer. The one man in America who managed to hold 2 truths up at the same time got turned into a murder suspect by people who say they're defending his wife. He already asked the question. Nobody answered him. Now, 1,600 miles south of that courtroom in Collin County, Texas, there's a case you already know about. For 16 months, this country argued about exactly 2 things. Whether Austin Metcalf said something racist and whether Carmelo Anthony was a violent kid. That's it. Honestly, when you boil it down, every post, every panel, every thread, those were the 2 things. And last Thursday and Friday at the hearing on the motion for a new trial, we found out what happened to those 2 things inside the actual courtroom. They were taken out. The Dallas Morning News covered it before the trial. Attorneys on both sides came to an understanding. Anthony's team says it kept out allegations that Metcalf had repeatedly been racist and aggressive. Prosecutors had messages and other material they said showed Anthony had stalked an ex-girlfriend and was preoccupied with violence. Out, both gone. The jury never got to hear either one. And I want to be careful here because this part matters. That was not a judge's ruling. There was no hearing. Nobody wrote an opinion. 2 sets of lawyers with opposite goals sat down and came to an understanding about what 12 citizens would be allowed to know. They're calling it a gentleman's agreement. I call it legal malpractice. And now 2 sides don't agree on what it is. Of course they don't. That's why you put everything in writing. How do 2 lawyers, every lawyer I ever meet has one instruction for me. Get it in writing. And then we have 2 lawyers in the biggest case this country has seen all year doing gentlemen's agreements, spitting and shaking hands. Give me a break. That's not legal theory. That's legal malpractice. So essentially, we've got an agreement that only one gentleman remembers. And again, I've got to tell you something, and it isn't flattering. When I first heard about this, I was furious. I still am. I was building the episode in my head on the way to the barn. Both of these lawyers should be disbarred. They sat in a room and decided what a jury gets to know, who elected them. And I've got a track record here. I did an episode with the withheld video I thought was ridiculous they withheld. Then I did the thing I'm asking you to do all hour. I looked it up. So apparently these deals do happen constantly. That doesn't make it right. Attorneys agree to keep things out all the time in courtrooms all over this country every single week. And Judge Chitty just reviewed the whole arrangement and let the conviction stand. Collin County DA Greg Willis said they respected the decision and expected it. So I was wrong, but I still think it's wrong. I guess I wasn't entirely wrong. Because that agreement still deleted the only 2 facts this country cared about for 16 months. No judge ruled on it. Nobody in that courtroom was there for the record. The jury is supposed to be the one who decides what matters. That's the whole reason we drag 12 strangers out of their jobs and pay them $14 a day. So which is it? I guess it's both. It's routine and it's wrong. And between you and I hated finding that out. I really wanted the clean version. The clean version was going to be a really good episode. Oh, and one more thing about that courtroom. Kara reported the original trial judge, John Roach Jr., got recused the Wednesday before that hearing. Why? After the verdict, he went and did a television interview. The judge went on TV. God, what is wrong with these people? Everyone's got a show now. I've got a show. That's how you know it's a problem, right? Now, let's talk about money, because this is where it stops being a case and starts being a business. This is the whole thing. 2 weeks after Austin Metcalf died, a fundraiser went up for Carmelo Anthony on Give, Send, Go. Fox News Digital reported the final number. $633,985. Days after he was sentenced, Anthony filed paperwork asking for a court-appointed attorney for his appeal. In that filing, he described himself as penniless and destitute. I'm not building a joke on top of that. I'm going to say the number to you again and let you do it yourself. $633,000. And penniless. And to be accurate with you, his parents haven't been accused of anything, and nobody's established that the money went anywhere improper. That page said out loud the fund wasn't only for legal bills. Of course. Here's what tells you what these things really are. In April of 2025, Jacob Wells, who's the co-founder of Give, Send, Go, talks to Fox News Digital about his own platform. He said the outrage on the right is what fueled the response on the other side. That's his words about his own company. Same pattern he'd watched with the Rittenhouse Fund and the Daniel Penny Fund. So when one side gets loud, the money shows up on the other side. That's not a donation. That's a scoreboard. That's all it is. But again, can't both be true? A 19-year-old with a public defender and a 19-year-old with $600,000 are not standing in the same courtroom, and anyone who cares about equal justice ought to be uncomfortable with that. And a family that raised $600,000 filing paperwork that says penniless is going to make some people's heads come off, and they're not wrong to notice. And before I get the text, no, I'm not saying poor defendants should stay poor. I'm saying we built a system where your defense budget is set by how angry strangers got at your case, and both of those kids deserve better than a leaderboard. And now I have to tell you about Austin Metcalf's father. On June 10th, days after the judge lifted the gag order, Jeff Metcalf went on a podcast called Jinxed Sip, hosted by Sarah Fields, and called Carmelo Anthony a watermelon felon. He told the host right before he said it that he was going to make something racist up so it would go viral. Then he said it and grinned. Asked about there being no black jurors seated, he said black people couldn't be unbiased and went into a run about absent fathers and single mothers and people living off the government. We fact-checked the clip on June 12th. It's real, it's him, it's on video, and that is indefensible. It's disgusting. I'm not walking you around it. I'm not putting it in context. I'm not telling you what he really meant, because he told us what he meant. He announced it before he did it. Jeff Metcalf also sat in that courtroom every single day of that trial. He buried his 17-year-old. He told CBS Texas on June 11th that the thing that killed him was the police body cam audio, because you can hear his other son on it, Austin's twin brother Hunter, screaming for his brother. He says, as a parent, you always want to protect your kids, and he wasn't there to fix it. He was under gag order for months, listening to this whole country discuss his dead child while he wasn't allowed to say a word back. And he told CBS that forgiveness was never for Carmelo Anthony. It was for him. It was the only way for him to control his own rage. And he's the one who said from day one, don't make this about race, don't politicize it. And then asked the country, what did you do? You chose both. He said that. And then he did the thing. All of it true, all the same time, in one man. Now, I told you up top, I don't audit hearts, and I mean it. I don't know what's inside Jeff Metcalf, neither do you. What I know is what he said because it's on video, and it's what this country did with it because that's on video too. And what this country did took about 4 hours. Half the internet filed him as a racist and deleted the dead son. The other half filed him as a grieving father and deleted the racist rant. Wait, can't both be true? A man lost his child in the most violent way imaginable in front of that child's twin? And that same man went on a podcast and said something ugly on purpose and knew it and did it anyway? So can't we grieve with the man and condemn what came out of his mouth? I mean, that's not a sophisticated position. That's what your neighbor says over the fence. No training, no theory, no party. And apparently in a country of 340 million people, it wasn't available in that size. And here's where it really stops being funny. When people came for him, some of them went after Austin. The kid, the dead one, the 17-year-old who's been in the ground for a year, who didn't say it, wasn't there for it, and can't answer for any of it. That's the machine. The further it gets from the thing that actually happened, the harder it swings. All right. Everything so far has a body in it. So let me take you somewhere with no body, no defendant, no verdict, and no dead child, and show you the same thing happening. Let me take you to a county planning meeting. Right now, all over this country, Americans are in absolute war over warehouses, essentially. Data centers, big buildings full of computers, biggest land use brawl in American history. NBC News reported the numbers in June from a group called Data Center Watch. First 3 months of this year, local opposition blocked or delayed 75 projects worth $130 billion in one quarter. That matched all of last year. Organized opposition groups more than doubled, 833 of them across 49 states. 49. Somebody's slacking. Time ran it in July on the 18th, 142 protests in 42 states. More than 300 cities, towns, and counties have passed bans or pauses. And nobody's fighting about the building. Vox ran the headline, Americans don't know how to fight AI, so they're fighting data centers. Brookings said the same thing in a suit. The land fight is a stand-in for everyone's anxiety about what AI is going to go to do to their job and their kid. It's a proxy. The coverage says it's a proxy. They wrote it down and actually published that. But nobody in these rooms is arguing about a warehouse. The warehouse is the ballot. Now watch the choice you get handed. Build it fast, give them whatever they want, throw the caution out, or we lose to China. Or stop. 2 doors. That's the American menu on AI today. And notice something, because this one's different from every other story today. There's no team here. The fight scrambled everyone. Republicans mad about the tax breaks and the strain on the grid. Democrats mad about the water and the emissions. Ranchers and environmentalists sitting on the same folding chairs agreeing with each other, which hasn't happened in this country since somebody let a wolf out somewhere. Nobody knows what jersey to wear here. And the choice is still binary. So it was never about the parties. Take the teams out of the room and we build the 2 doors anyway, out of habit, like a guy who keeps setting an alarm after he retires. I wrote a whole book about Americans getting handed a false choice about progress. I didn't expect the sequel to show up on a county agenda this fast. It's right here. Because these things pull real water and real power, and somebody's utility bill is going to move. And it's real infrastructure with a real strategic argument behind it, and a country that builds nothing isn't a country that wins anything. Both. Neither one's a lie. Neither cancels the other, and building it carefully isn't on the menu because nobody's selling it except me. Now let's go in the rooms, because the rooms are where it gets good. Inner Grove Heights, Minnesota. June 23rd, NPR News. Council's on the final reading of a 1-year pause. They decide to recess until Friday morning because new information just landed. Mayor Brenda Dietrich recesses the meeting and the room boos them out of the building. They booed a delay. Not the project, the delay. That's a crowd that showed up to yell and refused to be sent home without doing it. And the building they're fighting about is 54,000 square feet, which in data center terms is a shed. The reporting says it's considerably smaller than the hyperscale projects. I mean, it's basically a Costco with better AC. And Van Buren Township, Michigan, residents organized against a proposed 1 gigawatt facility the developer had codenamed Project Cannoli. 1 gigawatt, Project Cannoli. Somebody pitched that in a conference room and every adult present nodded. My favorite one is the whole show in one sentence at a city meeting. Wheeling, West Virginia, in July, the Intelligencer reported a man named Eddington got up in front of the council and told them that about 70% of Americans oppose the AI industry. Now, there is a real poll behind that, and Gallup interviews March 2nd through the 18th, 1,000 adults. 70% of Americans oppose having a data center built in their own local area. 48% strongly opposed. Real number, real poll. Good methodology. In their own local area. But by the time it got to the podium in Wheeling, it had become the AI industry. Nobody lied. Nobody made anything up. A true thing walked from a pole to a microphone and got bigger along the way a fish does, just human nature. And that same speaker said the site should be opposed whether it turns out to be a data center or a plant that makes parts for one. So it doesn't even have to be the thing anymore. And he's not alone. Heat Map News reported in May that people are fighting proposed data centers that were never going to run AI at all. That would be like boycotting a restaurant because it shares a landlord with a restaurant you don't like. Once again, the label outran the building. Can't both be true? The poll is accurate, and those people's concerns are legitimate. And 70% in my neighborhood isn't 70% of the country, and the second you stretch it, you've handed the other side a reason to throw your whole case in the trash. And the part that should worry you is that the man who stretched it is on the side I'd probably agree with. Being right doesn't make you accurate, it just makes you comfortable. Now, 2 days ago, Alamance County, North Carolina, 3 hours of public comment, 42 people spoke. Capacity crowd, they had to move it to the historic courthouse. The second to last speaker of the night was a woman named Kelly Harrer, an administrator at Elon University, and she said this: "A 2-year moratorium is not a ban, it's simply a pause." That's the radical position. One person of 42 at the end of 3 hours described a process instead of picking a door. Not build everything, not build nothing. Write the rules first and then decide. Luckily for her, I've already written the rules. Speaker 41, by the way, was talking about Dixie and carpetbagger developers coming down here. Same meeting, same warehouse, same side. So here's where we've ended up. 3 dead children in Massachusetts, a dead 17-year-old in Texas, and a shed in Minnesota. Same machine every time. Pick one, pick now. 2 things can't be true at the same time anymore. And nobody is saying the next part out loud. We've built an entire country's worth of machinery to sort this out. Courts, juries, rules of evidence, expert witnesses, public hearings, planning commission, zoning codes, environmental review, fact checkers, panels, studies, whole professions of people whose only job is deciding whether 2 things can be true at the same time. And the only thing anyone needed this year was a 4-word question a kindergarten could ask. Wait, can't both be true? That's the fix. That's the whole fix. And I know exactly how it sounded when I said it. That's the wacky part. Not the fundraisers, not the dream evidence, not Project Cannoli. The wacky part is that the most reasonable sentence in America now plays as provocation. Say it at Thanksgiving and somebody puts down a fork. Say it in a comment section and 40 people need to know whose side you're on anyway. Say it about any name in this episode and half the country's already decided what you meant before you got the verb. And I know some of you are calling this, you're calling it fence sitting, enlightened centrism, guy who won't commit. No, that's not me. Centrism is picking the middle of 2 positions. I'm telling you, both positions are half a file. I'm not standing between them. I'm standing in front of the whole thing while everyone else argues over their half. It wasn't 9 crazy stories today. It was one habit running 9 times on 9 unrelated subjects with 9 completely different casts. We stopped sorting true from false. We started sorting ours from theirs. And once you're doing that, a second true thing isn't extra information. It's a threat because it might belong to them. That's why nobody can hold up 2. Not because it's hard, because it's expensive. Now, if somebody wants to tell me that asking a 4-word question is naive, that the country's too far gone, that people are just going to keep picking teams, I'd like to introduce you to a guy I happen to love. May of 1988, Ronald Reagan is standing in a lecture hall at Moscow State University under a bust of Lenin, explaining to Soviet students what freedom actually is. And he doesn't reach for an election. He reaches for our courtroom. He tells them that in America, the accused is presumed innocent, and the word of an official carries no more weight than the word of the accused. Then he tells them what freedom is. Freedom is the right to question and change the established way of doing things. The right to question. Not the right to win, not the right to have a correct opinion, the right to raise your hand in a room where everybody's already decided and ask. He said that to a country where you couldn't. We can. We've just decided not to because it's uncomfortable. So here's what I want from you this week, and it costs you nothing. When the next one comes, and it's coming probably by Friday, and everyone in your feed already knows which side you're supposed to be on before the facts are in, ask it out loud in the room at the table. Wait, can't both be true? Can't she have murdered her kids and be mentally ill at the same time? Can't Carmelo Anthony be a violent teenager and Austin Metcalf may have had racial outbursts in the past. Murder's still wrong. The kid's still dead. The kids are still dead. It's all true. But for whatever reason, in today's clickbait, salacious media environment and political environment, we are incapable of holding two truths at the same time. Because one means that, you might be questioning my personal identity that I've signed my political ideology to. You understand how stupid that is? You understand that is the most unintelligent stance that a human being can ever take? The inability to hold two truths at once, which is essential, as Reagan pointed out, for our freedom. So again, ask the question, can't both be true? And then make sure you hold both even when it's uncomfortable. Especially then, because that discomfort isn't a sign you got it wrong. That's what accuracy actually feels like. Look, nobody's asking you to be nicer, especially not me. I'm asking you to be right. Quick housekeeping, and then I'll let you go. Everything lives at chadparkerlaw.com. Books included. The Price of Progress is the one I mentioned tonight, and I'd read it before the next county meeting in your town. After Hours is next. 252 Chad Law, and I read the ones telling me I've got this dead wrong, especially those. Stick around, and I'll answer the text that came in during the broadcast. And listen, 12 people in Plymouth County, Massachusetts are doing that job right now. Whatever they come back with, whenever they come back with it, they're the only people in this country who've been forced to sit in a room, look at two true things, and do the work. No phones, no hashtags, no popcorn. I hope they can do it and don't deadlock, but I don't have a great feeling. And as a country, I hope we can start believing two truths with no lie. America, that was common sense. Stick around for the after hours while I answer all the questions that came in during this live broadcast. All right, let's see what we got. Denise, ending in 4417. Did you actually ever play Two Truths and a Lie, or did you just need a title? No, more times than I can count. Every sales training, every offsite, every time someone decided a room needed loosening up before we could talk about numbers. And I was terrible at it. I'm a bad liar and a worse actor, and my tell is I get too specific. Nobody remembers the name of a restaurant in a true story. Reading people is the one thing I'd put on a resume, and it works in one direction. I can spot yours and have a very hard time hiding mine. Great question. Marcus, haven't heard from Marcus in a while, 8802. You skipped past it, but a judge went on TV about a case he'd just tried. Shouldn't that be allowed? I did skip it, and it deserved more than a button. Thanks for pointing that out. I don't know what the rules should be. I know what the incentive is. Everyone's got an audience now. I'm sure he's coming out with a book. The lawyers, the reporter, the guy in row 4 with a phone. When every person in the building has a channel, the building has stopped being a courtroom and starts being a set. He got recused. That's the system catching it. And I'm glad they did. They should have. We'll see how else he tries to monetize his judgeship. Tanya, ending in 6135. You spent an hour telling people to hold two truths, and then you clearly think Anthony's conviction was right. You picked a side and dressed it up as nuance. Fair hit, and I'll take the valid half first. Deferring to a jury is a position. I did take one. I'm not pretending I'm standing nowhere, but watch the distinction because it's the whole thing. I'm not saying he's guilty because I reviewed the evidence. I'm saying 12 people who sat through the entire trial said so. A judge reviewed it, and I wasn't in the room. Neither were you. That's not a verdict opinion. That's knowing where my competence stops, which is a skill I highly recommend. And what I did tell you is still open. That agreement in front of the Fifth Court of Appeals right now. If that court says something went wrong in there, you'll hear it from me, and you'll hear it whether it helps anyone or not. I don't think it will, but. All right, Bill, ending in 2790. Sometimes one side is just wrong. Not everything has two truths in it. Correct. And thank you. Because that's the objection I would have texted myself. Two truths isn't a rule. There are always two. It's a question, not an answer. Sometimes you ask it and the answer is no. One thing's true, the other's garbage. You go with the true one and you don't apologize to anyone. The failure isn't picking one. The failure is picking before you asked. It's awesome. Priya, ending in 5548. What actually changes your mind? A real example. The journal. I've kept a handwritten one since I was a kid. My mother bought me my first one. I was so young, I can't tell you how old, and I've never gone a stretch without one since. which means I can go read what I thought 3 years ago in my own handwriting. It's brutal. No algorithm in there flattering me, no comment section agreeing with me, no way to quietly edit the part where I was wrong. Just a guy with worse penmanship being extremely confident about something that did not happen. Cheapest fact check in America, and nobody seems to be running it. All right, Doug ending in 9061. You dodged the data centers. Hold both truths isn't a position. What would you actually do? Yeah, nice try. But I'll answer it anyways, because I guess there's kind of a question under there. I wrote the book on data centers, so you're asking the wrong person. But here's what I'd want asked in that room, and not one of it fits on a sign. Who pays for the grid upgrade, the company or the ratepayers? Does the tax break claw back if the jobs don't show up? Whose water rights get subordinated in a drought year? And is that written down, or is it another handshake? What's the decommissioning plan when the thing's obsolete in 15 years? 4 questions. All of them have answers. None of them are hard, but every one of them is boring, which is exactly why no one's screaming them at a mayor. It looks like I don't have a position because my position isn't a door, it's a checklist, and nobody ever built a protest sign shaped like a checklist. Everyone's arguing about what. I'm talking about how. All right. Renata ending in 3374. What's the next case this happens to? Whatever's on your phone Friday, and I'm not being cute. I don't know the name yet, and neither does anyone else. But I'll give you the tell so you can catch it before it catches you. Watch the headline. If it tells you what happened, you're being informed. If it tells you what the 2 positions are before you've read a single fact, you're being sorted. You'll know which one it is inside 4 seconds. That's the depressing part. And you already know how to do this if you've ever watched my show. I talk about this all the time. It's the curse I have. Anyways, that's the show. Great questions tonight. Please don't forget, text me, argue with me, 252-CHAD-LAW. I'll be here. And remember, there is such thing as 2 truths and no lie. God bless you, President Reagan. And as always, God, please save America.
It's wonderful. It's marvelous that you should care for me. Yes, you've made my life so glamorous. You can't blame me for feeling